And I will open up and dissect the cat for you to see how we get to that. And you can see here that the ways that we cut it, right? Mid-sagittal plane, all the way up. And then across right here, there's the abdominopelvic cavity. You'll feel the ribs there. You peel that back there. You peel it back there. Right? So there's the rib cage right there, folks. Remember now, what structure separates the thoracic from the abdominopelvic cavity?
The diaphragm.
And there is the diaphragm right there. Right there's the diaphragm right there. Right there. Which had been cut away here to open up that. So that is against that. Right? The ribs, folks, are somewhat of a letter C like that. Like that. So what's going to happen is that will just stay like that. So we cut through in the mid-sagittal plane next to the sternum. You can see there's the sternum. And we're cutting through the costal cartilage right there. So that'll stay like that because of that. So what we do is, what I do, I break the ribs right there. You can see there with the bone cutters. Riggs right there behind you is the bone cutters. And I just break through it, open it up like that. So now it's open. So you can see there's abdominopelvic thoracic cavity right there. Right? And now, folks, what's real neat is there is what the blood vessels look like right there. Okay? You good? Okay? And again, like I said, the other thing too, folks, is lots of fresh air afterwards. Because again, you can notice like the door's closed, there's not, so I encourage people, please get lots of fresh air when we are working with these little things. Alright, stand in front of the fan. I guess I need to get another fan in here. The other one broke. I had it in here for a couple of years and then it just stopped. Awesome stuff. Alright? So real neat, people, in terms of this against this. So there's the diagram right there. So there's the human blood, there's the human arteries right there. Right there. So there's the line diagram. So for us, there's our veins right there. And notice the model of the veins look a lot like this. I should say this looks a lot like that. Alright, so this is a line diagram right here. And what we are highlighting here, folks, are the major veins and the arteries later on. So the smaller veins, we're going to ignore. This diagram was drawn of this. Alright? So that was drawn of this way, way back in time. Looks the same. So as we go through that, the other thing too, I'm looking at over there, in those whole series of the folder with the blood vessels, you've got these diagrams, and you've got those diagrams. I'll go over this with you when we get to the actual lecture part, the layers of the blood vessels, and that'll be part of lab exam number 2. So your quiz on the blood vessels will just be these two diagrams.
The heart and the veins.
Of
Or the veins and the arteries.
Of the cat, and you have blank diagrams there to help you. Right? So you can study that. Yes? All right?
I just got a big one on my face.
Now, what happened here, folks? So let's talk about this. And again, the respect for the animals, the fetal pigs, lots of them. And here's the thing too, people, is that in that bucket, unfortunately, Brian now, we're getting rid of the pregnant cat. It just, we kept her for a long time. Then I put in preservative, but it's now we have to get rid of her. It smells just too bad. Just too bad, right? So cats can have litters comfortably, right? 6 to 8 offspring, comfortably. Usually 6. Pigs can have litters from 12 to 15 comfortably. So a lot more. And the fetal pigs, like I said over there, a lot readily available. All right? Now what happens? The cat now is dead, and then what happens is they sever. You can see right there. So there you can see is a thread right there. So they cut through the jugular and they cut through the carotid artery right there. So as blood is drained from the cat into the arteries, they'll inject pink paint. So you can see the pink paint in the arteries. And as blood is drained, they will inject blue paint into the veins. So blue for veins, red for arteries. All right? So that helps us nicely, because when we look at all of these, we can actually see the veins and the arteries. All right? So there's the heart right there, folks. So there's the heart. All right? And notice how distended this right atrium is. So come close, you can see here how big the right atrium is right there, compared to the right atrium of the deer heart of last week. That was shriveled up. Now, why was that shrunken down like that? Because what happened was the deer hunter cut the blood vessels, and what happened to all of the blood? It drained out. So this right here is a stretched right atrium right there. So all of this is the stretched right atrium muscle. And there you can see, well, let's quickly still talk about the heart. There you can see the parietal pericardium right there that wraps around the heart right there.
So did I wrote visceral too.
The
quiz.
It was, what was, so remember now, epicardium there, epi, also known as visceral pericardium versus parietal pericardium. So parietal pericardium is analogous to dura mater of the sheep brain. So it's just kind of that linkage. If you didn't get it right today, then what you do, you that's the linkage you do. So I'm going to ask you, look, there's no funny stuff now, people. You guys, if you're following along and stuff, I'm going to ask the dura mater, I'm going to ask parietal pericardium on the exam next week. Right? All right, so there is the right atrium. And remember now, right atrium from last week, running into the right atrium is the superior vena cava right there, SVC, you can see it there. And there is the IVC. So if I tilt, now notice this is three-dimensional. Why I like this versus the pictures, etc. Because now you're moving things back and forth. And there you see the right atrium right there. And there you see superior vena cava into the right atrium, inferior vena cava into the right atrium right there. So IVC right there and SVC right there. Now this right here, folks, all of these right here, you can see this really nicely, which again now I'd mentioned is right there are branches of what cranial nerve that goes and wanders into the thoracic and the abdominal pelvic. Right there, vagus nerve, vagus or vagus. There's the brachial plexus that we talked about, right? So there's the vagus nerve, there's the brachial plexus. Let me point out the phrenic nerve, seeing that we had talked about it. There, folks, is the diaphragm, and there is the phrenic nerve right there. Right, there's the phrenic nerve, which is one of the spinal cord nerves. And while we are here, let me just tilt around. And there is the ischiatic nerve or the sciatic nerve. So there is my biceps femoris muscle. And there is the sciatic nerve right there. Right there. Whoops, sorry. Deep to my hamstring. So they peel the hamstring away, and there is the sciatic nerve.
Cool.
Okay? Alright, so let's see here. So what we're going to do is look at these veins in two perspectives. We're going to look at the first one, which is the veins above the heart. So they are the veins above the heart. So all of these veins are going to drain into the right atrium. Alright? Now, the big thing that I keep talking about is relationships, establish relationships, analogies, etc. So a lot of what we're seeing here are going to be blood vessels associated with one another. And what we're going to see here, folks, if you look at this, we're going to see lots of branching. So notice what letter do we see there?
It's a Y.
Yeah, letter Y, because the Y means branching. It's going to that part, going to that part. What's coming from that part here? All right? So there, all of that is my superior vena cava right there. So all of this is the superior vena cava right there with SVC. All right? Now, if you look at that, what do we see, folks? We see that there is one 2, 3 branches of the superior vena cava. All right, so let's look at this first one. So there's my superior vena cava into the right atrium, and here's this first one that drains into the superior vena cava. And again, look at relationships. So there is the right side, there's the left side, and notice where's this vein located? On the right side of the heart. There's the heart on the right side. I can't see it here yet, because what do we need to do? We need to tilt all of this over. Right there. Right there. So come close, you can see, folks. So there is my vertebral, there's my vertebral column. On the right hand side of the vertebral column is this vein right here that runs into the superior vena cava right there. And what is that vein called? That vein is called the azygous vein. Get the spelling, please. Azygous. A-Z-Y-G-O-U-S. So what is the vein right there? On the right-hand side, next to the lungs. I have to pull the lungs out of the way to see it. Azygous. Azygous, right there. All right? It drains into the superior vena cava right there. Then we continue on, and then we see this vein right here, folks. Now notice here, here's the diagram. And I've drawn it kind of to the side, and that vein is called the internal mammary vein. Internal mammary associated with what organ? The mammary glands. And the mammary glands would be located here. Would be located there. Right? This is a male, so there's never going to be mammary glands there. The cells are there, the mammary glands have atrophied. So the only time we see mammary glands on the female cat is 1, when she's pregnant, and 2, when she's lactating. Otherwise, it's gone. So the cells atrophy. So it shows up and then it disappears, right? So there's the muscle right there, folks. There's my sternum right there. There's the sternum right there. And there's the costal cartilage that we cut through. So the mammary vein, the internal mammary vein, is going to run from the mammary glands, or where it would be, into the superior vena cava. So notice, it is a 3-dimensional structure, because that is the internal mammary vein right there. Right there. And this one, this cat, the way it was dissected way back in time, we can see nicely what letter do we see there again? Why? Because there, ladies and gentlemen, is the internal mammary vein on that side of the sternum, and there is the internal mammary on this side. So all of this is internal mammary vein. Next to it is the artery. It's very small. Oh, the other thing too we see is veins are bigger than arteries. The lumen sizes, veins are bigger than arteries. So there's more blood in a vein than an artery. All right? So all of this is the internal mammary vein, as is all of that. So it's coming from left to right, and it drains down. Notice 2-dimensional. So the internal mammary vein is actually like that. There's the sternum. Yeah? Okay? So azygous vein into the superior vena cava, internal mammary into the superior vena cava, and then finally here we see a left, notice letter Y, and that is the left and the right brachiocephalic. Now please look at the roots of the words. Brachiocephalic. Brachio pertains to arm, and cephalic pertains to the head area. So brachiocephalic, all right? So there's a left and a right, okay? So brachiocephalic drains into, so there's the left brachiocephalic into the superior vena cava. There's the right brachiocephalic into the superior vena cava. All right, so I'm going to take this out here now, because I'm going to work on the left-hand side. So everything that we see here is in the right arm and the left arm. So here we've cleaned out the left arm right there. All right, and notice nice big cat, so things look very nicely here for us. All right, so what do we see now, folks? So now that is the point of reference right there. So please look. So what letter do I see there again?
A Y.
What degree of branching? And the branch comes out of the upper limb right there, and it comes out of the neck right there. Okay? So head and neck. So if you want to draw the cat right there, you can. That'll be the cat's arm, and that'll be the head, right, like that. So there, arm and neck. Right? So this big one that is coming from the neck area right there, this one is the external jugular. So we can't just call it the jugular. So this vein that we see here at times, folks, that is the external jugular. We call it the jugular, but it's external. So there is the external jugular right there. So there's the right one, the left one, sorry, here's the right one right here. So there's the jugular right there. That's the external jugular. Then up here, notice what happens. So there's left and right. Then over here, which we have intact, that attaches the left and the right one across right there. And what is that called? That is called the transverse jugular. So we can't just call it jugular because we have an external and we have a transverse. All right? Then, which is not present on the cat here, on this cat, if the internal jugular is present, the internal jugular is going to run parallel to the external jugular like that. And usually it's a much smaller vein. So the internal jugular will be that one right there.
Why might it not be present?
Now remember, we're injecting paint in here. It's a smaller blood vessel, and because it's so small, many times we don't have paint going into it, so we don't see it.
So it's there. We
It's
just
there.
don't see it.
It may be hard to see.
Okay.
Yeah, it's there. It's there. It's just hard to see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
But like I said, one of those cats, I have 3 or 4 cats that's there. So one of them, we will see it. So on one of the cats, I need to just find which one it is. So what I'm doing is I'm putting the pin there to see where it would be if it were present. All right, so you can see the diagram right there. So there is internal jugular, external jugular, transverse jugular, 3 jugulars. And just make sure the big one, of course, is which one? External jugular right there. Okay? Then, folks, this right here, and I'm hoping that your handout has that as well. Yeah, I think you did because I got rid of the old one. Yeah. So this one right here, folks, right here, because last semester or in the last spring, I had 2 of them, so I got rid of the old one. This one right here is this vein right there that forms a T-junction. So notice there's external jugular right there. So that is external jugular right there. And then coming across the shoulder into the side of the neck is this one right here called the cephalic vein. Cephalic vein. So that one is the cephalic vein right there that comes right there. So notice what do we see? T-junction. So external jugular and running into the external jugular, but midway up in the neck is the cephalic vein. Cephalic pertaining to the head area. All right? So that, folks, is this branch. So notice there, brachiocephalic is the point of reference right there. Right? Brachiocephalic right there. So draining into it is this one. Notice I've not said any name. I said it came out of the upper limb. This one, big one, is the external jugular. Crossing between the 2 external jugulars is the transverse jugular. The small one that comes up here is the internal jugular. And then on the other side, in a T-junction into the external jugular is the cephalic. So that's that first branch. Now we come to this one in the arm. So let's have a look here, folks, in the arm. All right, there we go. That's what I'm looking for right there. In the arm. So there's brachiocephalic, which is the point of reference. There's the Y. So external jugular drained into one section of the Y. Now this right here is one blood vessel, right? One blood vessel that drains in there. All right, so now let's see what we have. When this blood vessel right here, ladies and gentlemen, is in the chest cavity, it's in the chest cavity, so we cut that away, so it's in the body cavity under the scap, under the clavicle, right? Now, what a root of the word for under? Sub. So we can call it the subclavicular. or the Latin word subclavian. So there's subclavian in the chest cavity under the clavicle.
So it's the same one blood vessel though, with
Yeah.
different names.
Yeah, so you're going to see here now. So there's that blood vessel right there. All right? That same blood vessel, ladies and gentlemen, leaves the body cavity, and when it gets into the armpit area. Now, what is the armpit area called? Axillary. It's called the axillary vein right there. So same. Two different names. Subclavian, axillary. Cat is laying like that. Now we are in the upper arm area. And what is the upper arm area called? Brachial vein. You see, now way back, so we're jumping way back to lab number 1 or lecture number 1 of by 141, those roots of words, directional terms, body, now comes. Because if I remember that, now I remember all of this, right? Axillary armpit, brachial upper arm. And then, folks, it crosses over there. It comes from the thumb side. There's the thumb. And what is the bone on the thumb right there? The radius. So that is the radial vein right there. All right, now I drew that then. You can, for your information, the other one on that side right there. Because on some of these cats, and actually, these big cats, we can actually see it. The other one over there is called the ulna, which I haven't labeled.